Hi, everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. In today's episode, we're speaking with Master Sommelier, Restaurateur, and celebrated leader in the hospitality industry, Mr. Bobby Stuckey. Bobby has received some of the restaurant and wine industry's highest honors, such as James Beard Foundation nominations for Outstanding Wine and Spirits Professional and Outstanding Wine Service. Today, Bobby is the owner and master sommelier of 3 Colorado restaurants, one of which, Frasca Food and Wine, won the 2019 James Beard Foundation Award for Outstanding Service. Join us today as we chat with Bobby about his journey from a busboy to restaurateur and how he has helped shape the hospitality industry. There he is. Good morning, Bobby. How are you?
Well, I'm great, and such an honor to be on here. Thank you so much, Kirk. It's great to be on, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Did you get a run in this morning?
I just did. I actually just did a run, well, 8.5-mile run with a local wine importer, Craig Lewis, and a local restaurateur, Brian Dayton, who owns Carita and Oak.
That's what's so cool about watching, your escapades every day, that you're not only running, which is great for your health and your mind and all that, but you're networking the whole time. There's always somebody else. Do you keep up with them, or do they have to keep up with you?
I try to keep up with them. Let's be honest. At any time, those two, they were easy on me today.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hey, I love the photo behind you.
Oh, thanks.
Is it a painting or
No, it's a photograph. It's a photograph. I'll give you a little more view of it. It is a photographer named Slim Aarons. And this was one of the photos he did in Palm Springs in the late 60s, 70s. I think it's called the Newman House.
Okay.
And this is one of his famous pics here stateside. He did a lot of photos of people in Europe at leisure at that same time period.
Okay.
And my wife's a big fan of this photographer, and we got it for her birthday, I think 5-6 years ago.
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's 38 degrees in Boulder, so I look at that and I just get a little warmed up right away.
Yeah.
Hey, so first and foremost, Bobby, we're the ones that are honored. We know how busy you are, and I just can't thank you enough for spending a little time with us this morning. First and foremost, thank you again for serving as Escaffier's recent commencement speaker. So inspirational, so appropriate, so relevant, so timely. Your story was real and really resonated with everyone. We're still hearing people talk about it. So a big thank you for that. That was super, super cool. I'm gonna jump right in. We both live in Boulder. So I don't know how many people know this, but I attended a super cool sort of Q&A. It was super, super casual. A couple of years ago, it was over at Rapa, across the street, kind of from the restaurant. And, I know that you're an avid runner. We just talked about that, but I didn't know until that day that you were a one-time professional cyclist. Team Shakely, I think it was, in early 90s. Let's talk about that a little bit. I love cycling. I think it's the coolest.
Me too. Yeah. It's a great sport. And, that was in the early 90s. I was lucky enough. I had raced the 1992 season as an amateur over in the Basque Country of Spain. I came back. I was kind of, for a moment, without what they call here domestically a trade team to be on. I was on a smaller regional team. I had a really good spring of 1993, and there was a spot that came available on Shakely. Actually, the team leader, Jamie Carney, was living in Flagstaff, where I was working as a waiter and studying for my initial sommelier exam. And he kept seeing me at these races, and I just had a really good spring, and I got picked up by them, and it was really a wonderful time in my life. It's funny though, at that time, domestically as an American pro cyclist, unless you were one of the guys going to Europe, you pretty much had a second job. And I kept staying in the restaurant business the whole time. And I feel really lucky for that too. But I love that I got to do that. It was great. It added a lot of discipline in my life, because if you're going to wake up and get your, 20 plus hours of training in a week and still having a job at night as a server, you got to be really focused and really organized, and it really helped me.
Yeah, did that time in Europe, where food and wine and drink and coffee is super, super important, right? Culture. Did that,
Yeah.
did it help? Did it
Oh,
help a little bit?
100%.
Yeah.
I was over there. There was in the Basque Country at that season, there were only a couple Americans racing over there. There was a gentleman named Michael Alvarado. He's now a cancer surgeon in the Bay Area. He was up in a small town up near Bilbao, and I was about 50 kilometers away outside of Victoria with another Boulderite now who also lives here, Jeff Winkler, who coached for CU for a long time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Jeff and I were on a team that was actually sponsored by a coffee importing company. So it was great. There was food all around all the time. So as a guy that was into food and wine, it was a great place to race. And maybe it wasn't my strongest attributes. It's pretty hilly there, and I'm kind of a little bit of a bigger guy. But I got through the season. It was okay.
So, when did it kind of transition to running, or are you still cycling whenever you can?
I still cycle when I can. It just takes a little bit more time than running. It's
Sure.
funny. I started off as a runner as a kid, and then got into cycling. And then when I got done with cycling as in a competitive level, I just went right back into running, just because it was a great balancing act with working in restaurants.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Can we talk about the book just real quick? I absolutely love it. It's heavy, all 264 pages of it, right? Just gorgeous. And the foreword by Danny Meyer is so absolutely thoughtful. It's very clear, Bobby, that you're unbelievably respected in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about how the book came to be, and perhaps a little bit about the Friuli region? And I know that the culture there is so near and dear to you, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's chat about the book a little bit.
So the book really is kind of throw out what you think of as like a restaurant book. It's written by the Frasca team, but Frasca as a restaurant is based on the cuisine of Friuli, Venezia Giulia, northeastern Italy. And this book, really think of it as a love letter to that region.
Oh gosh, I love that.
And it's kind of divided in three parts. It's part kind of teach you how to drink wine over there, how to travel over there, and of course how to cook the dishes. So it really is about the cuisine, the culture, and the wine of Friuli, Venezia Giulia. And I feel very lucky that Lachlan and I and my wife Danette found that wonderful region 20 plus years ago and fell in love with it. And it's given us so much reward as a restaurant group.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I told you, we're looking to go over with the family in the fall. And the more I've researched, it's a blending of a lot of cultures, right? So I mean, you can fly into Munich and get a little bit of the Alps in Germany. You can go into Austria. I think you typically fly into Venice, right?
Venice or Trieste. This year during
okay.
COVID, we couldn't get into they didn't have the connect Munich Trieste, but that's a really good flight. Venice is easy too. But yes, you're 100% right, Kirk. I always like to say it's the northern part of the Italian culture. It's the southern part of what was the Austrian Empire, and it is the western border of Eastern Europe. And it all collides right there. Udine, Gorizia, and Trieste, and it's really, really exciting.
Beautiful people, beautiful food. So let's talk about you a little bit more. You've talked about, I've heard on podcasts and I've read, school was a little challenging for you when you were growing up, but you found, ironically enough, solace in the chaos of the kitchen, particularly as a busboy.
Yeah.
or even a dishwasher and a server. And it sort of reminds me, this is going to be funny, sort of reminds me of the Matrix films, right? When the bullets slow down and Neo grabs one of them and then completely has a full understanding of the power, right? Is that's dramatic, but is that what it was like for you? Is that where you found peace?
Yeah.
Your
I mean, I think,
voice? Yeah.
yeah, I think that, look, it wasn't that I wasn't trying as a student. I tried really hard. I just wasn't great at being a student. And I really worked my tail end off to be average or below average. And then I have a brother who were born on the same day, 2 years apart. Academia was very, very easy for him.
Okay. Okay.
And it's funny, we're still very, very close. We run a marathon a year together. He is my best friend. Um, and I just remember my first couple of weeks working in the restaurant business, just that frenetic energy. Really, I felt like I found my people, and I was able to do it. And, I got positive reinforcement, and I really enjoyed it. And the more I stayed in the restaurant business, you don't know what you're doing when you're a teenager, but I knew I liked it. And so what do? You keep doing things that you like. And as I kept growing up, I was growing up in the restaurant business, and I thought, wow. And look, things have changed a lot. Like when I was in college at Northern Arizona University in the late 80s, early 90s, there wasn't as direct of a path of how to be a restaurant person. Now, with so many great uh, culinary schools, universities, and also media. Food media has helped people understand our
Sure.
industry. We didn't have that back then, but I just kept growing in the industry, and I just so thankful that it found me.
Yeah, let's kind of segue to family a little bit. You mentioned your brother, and I believe your folks are in the area as well, from what I've seen on social media.
Yeah,
Um,
they live in Phoenix, but they have a townhome up here. And when my dad retired, he's 76. He retired 6 years ago. They got a place up near Wonderland Lake. So, they're both very active people, and it's great having them out here.
that's great. That's great. What was family important, supportive in the directions that you took in your life and in your career?
I mean, I think one of the biggest gifts I have is a very supportive family. I mean, um, look, especially back then, if you said, I remember telling people you wanted to be in the restaurant business, and when you graduated from college in 1992 was not a popular sentiment. It really took having great parents that were like, yeah, do it, go for it, be the best that you can be. And that's what we can all take away from is
Yeah,
support doesn't always have to be monetary. Support can just be a great hug and encouragement.
I love
It can
that.
be some of the
Yeah.
most powerful thing ever.
Yeah, well said. Family's so important. And
Kurt, real quick on that. When I got done and I got off the stage for the commencement speech for the into the 2021 semester, I saw that played out all over the place. It was amazing seeing all those supportive families for the students, and you have such great diversity of students between age and walks of life, where they are in the country, and you saw that universal supportiveness from all those families. I thought it was just so awesome.
yeah, that. Thanks for saying that. We know that the majority of our students can't get through themselves, right? It's their support system, it's their spouses, their kids, their grandparents, their parents. Yeah, really well said. For you then, as you ventured into this industry, I'm really curious what stimulated your love for wine and hospitality and service. That's the theme of everything I say or see of anything related to you. It's about an incredible guest experience. You really like your customers, which I believe is really important in business, right? Like your customer.
Yeah.
Where did that love of wine, did somebody turned you in that direction, or is that just something that naturally occurred?
Well, I always love listening to people say how they got into wine. And look, I'm not going to try to pretend that I had a glass of 1961 Chateau Latour and the heavens opened up and these angels flew around my head. That didn't happen.
Okay.
I didn't have that experience. I'm always curious when I hear those things because I'm a pretty good wine taster, and I just don't understand how at the beginning of your career you could taste something that stupendous and it just changed your career path. How I found it was kind of what you said earlier is I just love taking care of people. At that time period in the late 80s, early 90s, we did not have a linear path for people who wanted to become more professional. And I was working it was 1992. I was working, I had gone to work for a restaurant called Bricks in Flagstaff, and they had a very, for that time period, and especially in a community as small as Flagstaff, a really cool little wine program and wine shop with this restaurant. And the guy who kind of ran the wine program, his name was Robert Fusco. He taught really great wine classes. And I just loved them. They were on Wednesdays, and I just loved them. And I thought, well, if I want to be a really good waiter, this is important as a way to best take care of my guests. Because my guests would come in, and especially for Flagstaff, we had some wines that maybe were not normal for that marketplace. So I needed to learn about them, and I loved our Wednesday class. And then I saw on the mail, he had his mail laid out, and he was doing some work at the bar, and he had this envelope for the quartermaster sommeliers. This is before this was on websites. You couldn't go Google anything. And he had this envelope about this calendar of classes for the next year. And I was like, wow, I want to go do this.
Kind of serendipitous then. You kind of,
Yeah,
you were looking at the right place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, and that's how it really happened, was just going to those classes on Wednesdays. And then I would like volunteer to help him do inventory. I just found it fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So for our listeners, I mean, I think it's really important to mention that you earned your Master Sommelier diploma from the Court of Master Sommeliers.
Yes.
Which, hopefully I get this all right, considered by many to be the ultimate professional credential in the wine and spirit service industry, right? I think there's less than 250 people in the world that have passed that exam. And then of course, boom, you're at the Little Nell, you're at the French Laundry. I have a couple of questions. Some of my team knew that we were chatting today, and to your point, I can't wait to hear your response to this. You read about just the difficulty of getting through that test, but also some of the quirky sort of habits that people who taste wine go through, taking decongestants or not brushing their teeth before they taste wine because they don't want to, impact the taste of the wine. What were there any quirky sort of rituals, or was it pretty straightforward for you?
It was pretty straightforward for me. I mean, I think it was just like anything, a lot of one step forward, just putting one step in front of the other. I do think, getting a routine, whatever that may be for your day. For me, it was waking up and going for a run before the exam. Those things really helped. But it is a difficult exam. I wish we could make it less difficult. I always think if you're an examining or a teaching board, our goal should be to get more people to pass, because that means we're doing a good job educating.
Sure.
But the one thing that makes that exam tough, it isn't the exam itself. It's that you have one day a year to do it. And so for some of us, that could be test anxiety, or they're just not used to in everyday life putting themselves out there that hard for a couple day exam. And that's the thing that tends to be hard about the exam. And I lived through that. It took me at the last level, it took me 6 attempts. And I think part of it was because it gets bigger than it needs to be for you personally.
Kind of like the Olympics a little bit, right? It's got to come together on that day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, the Little Nell. The first time I dined at the Little Nell, I don't even know what year it was, but Chef George Mahaffey was
Oh
there.
yeah, he was there when I was there.
That was a while ago. Yeah. So our paths may have crossed, but Little Nell, still an absolutely charming, beautiful, unbelievable, spot in Aspen. And then the French Laundry. So I'm just curious, especially for our listeners, you worked your way up and then boom, like a rocket ship. I mean, Little Nell, French Laundry. It does not get much better than that. Thomas Keller. How did that all come about? Was it connections? Was it I aspire to this, and that's where I'm going?
It was a couple some it was interesting. There weren't a lot of sommelier jobs in Arizona where I was living.
Okay.
And I was applying at the Phoenician. They had like an assistant position open. I had applied, I think I applied, well, there weren't many positions. I tried to get a job I was just looking for an assistant position. And I was a friend of mine, Tom Kaufman and Krista Kaufman, who owned Rancho Pino. I was helping them out. And I was looking at the Phoenician. I had interviewed and I got a job offer. And at the same time, I heard about this position at the Little Nell as the assistant. George Mahaffey, who you mentioned, was the executive chef at the time. And Tom Kaufman had worked with George at the Hotel Bel Air. And he's like, Bobby, I've been up there. That's where you want to go be the assistant. It's a big program. It's just as big as the Phoenician, but it'll get you out of your home. He just put all these great reasons. Get you out of your hometown. The team up there is great. And he kind of knew the players up there. He said, you got to apply for that. And I applied for it. And I went up and interviewed. And she was the food and beverage director at the moment. She's now one of the really great hoteliers in North America. Connie Thornburg was who I interviewed with, and she ended up becoming the boss that hired me. And the GM at the time was Eric Calderon. And both of them were just so leadership rich. And I say that you can have managers, but there's a difference between managers and leaders. And they were a leadership rich organization. And Connie and Eric were just amazing to me. And that team that they had with George, at that time, it was George Mahaffey and Keith Brown as the GM of the dining room. It was really, if you wanted to apply yourself, you could not have found a management team that would let you fly better. As long as you wanted to apply yourself, they were there to get you to the next level. And I just feel so lucky that I went there versus some other opportunities I had.
I love that story. So mentorship, very important to you as you were coming up. Is that now roles reversed? Is that still very important to you? Do you love mentoring others?
I do. I love mentoring. I have to say, I'm not as good as Connie and Eric, and I'll tell you why. This has not happened to me yet. I did a cookbook dinner at Ojai Valley Inn where Connie is the managing director, and she reminded me how my father used to write a Christmas card to Connie and Eric individually each year, thanking them for their mentorship of their son. Mind you, I'm the wine director of the Little Nell. I'm an adult, and you would have thought my dad was writing their little league coach.
I absolutely love that. Oh my God.
And Connie brought it up in front of my whole team that came out to do the cookbook dinner at Ojai. And I was like, well, that is a life goal. I have not achieved that yet as a mentor, that I'm getting Christmas cards from
the parents
of my grown adult employees. So I do love mentorship. I have not hit the gold standard that Eric and Connie gave for me yet.
Oh,
but I'll keep working at it.
Well, there's others that probably differ with that. You're very, very humble. I know that you've impacted a lot of people. Your first restaurant venture, I believe, Frasca Food and Wine, right? 18 years in business now. Is that right?
It's 18 years this summer. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So congratulations on that amazing accomplishment, right? And it's not just the longevity of the restaurant, but it's this ability to maintain, a stellar menu, right? Accompanied by, equally unbelievable service that makes those 18 years outstanding, right? I know that it's you. We all know that it's you on the floor every night. I'm always telling my wife, Gretchen, it's like, look at Bobby. He's like, he's bringing the trays back to the kitchen. And, I just love, it's such a good message, right? That you truly, it appears that you love the work. You love being on the floor. You love interacting with the guests. And there's a message for Escoffier students, for graduates, for other students who are potentially considering their next moves in this industry, in this craft that we love, right? Are there some key points, not to, take away all the secrets, but are there some key points to keep in mind as you're navigating the path that is this industry, to keep in mind?
There are a few key points. And, first of all, you're right. I do love being on the floor with the guests. And I also love being on the floor with my teams and working side by side with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also very lucky. The GM, Rose Voda, she is going to kill me for saying this. Not only has she been with us since we opened day one, she was employee one. She worked with me back at the Little Nell. So we were talking about this with a guest last night. It was Valentine's, and one of the guests who lives in Denver, but it's been coming up to the restaurant since the beginning. He's like, how long have the two of you worked together? And it was funny. I was holding the tray and Rose was doing the Asagi course for the menu. And so it was Rose and I, two most senior people in the dining room, we'll say, so I don't get in trouble. And the guest was like, how long have you guys worked together? And then I said, well, Rose and I started working together in 1996 at the Little Nell. I think she might have taken that tray and hit me on the way back into the kitchen. She's like, hey, people can do the math.
Too much info, Bobby. Too much info. Yeah.
But there's people like that, like Rose, like Jeremy Schwartz. There's a lot of key players on the team at Frasca Hospitality that have been with us so long. That's really where that happens. It is not a yoke that I carry. It is something that the team carries together and works together. But I do, the long answer is, I do love being on the floor with those teams, but I have to give them a lot of credit. And going back to the craft, and you said it, our industry is a craft. There are no prodigies. There is no hospitality prodigies. There's no such thing. It's scientifically impossible. Our industry is a craft. Prodigies can only be in mathematics, music, and art. Those are the only disciplines really that people can be a prodigy, where they can either get very high success through hard work or just
yeah.
We don't have that in our industry. So everyone just has to realize there's never been a hospitality prodigy and there never will be. So all of us are all equal that way. We all have to work at it as a craft. And what does a craft mean? Craft means it's a journey. It's not a destination. You got to work on it all the time.
I love that. Beautifully said. And Rose is quite lovely, by the way. Always so kind to us. Appreciate that. So you mentioned the restaurant industry. Let's talk a little bit about that. You're an advocate for our industry, the workers of the future. Can we talk a little bit? Is it okay to talk a little bit about saving the restaurant? Documentary comes out this week, right?
Yeah. Documentary comes out this week. It's a little bit of PTSD for me.
Okay.
It's hard to watch it because it's a documentary that represents a lot of pain in our industry. It's been a hard 2 years. You know, a little bit of the back of the napkin math. The documentary kind of charts the time of the legislation of the Independent Restaurant Coalition, working on legislation on a federal level. But at the end of the day, the painful piece of that documentary is there's still 177,000 independent restaurants that are in that queue waiting for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund to be refunded because it was only a down payment. It was not meant to only be a $28.6 billion fund. And we need to put the rest of the down payment down because we've got 177,000 restaurants. And it happened last night. I had a restaurateur from the Bay Area call me, asking him for advice last night. At the end of Valentine's night, I get a call from a guy because he had emailed me. He's hanging on by a thread. He needs that RRF to be refunded. And how it played out, it didn't play out fair. There were really government created winners and losers, who got it and who didn't. And it was because it was underfunded. And once it got cut off, if you were the next person in line and your neighbor got it and you didn't, you're at a disadvantage. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is something that we've been a sole mission of the group, the Independent Restaurant Coalition. For anybody who wants info on that, it's www.saverestaurants.com. And that we started that March 18th, 2020. So it's been 23 months of fighting for this industry that we care about so much. And I've always cared about our industry. I just didn't know how fragile the industry truly was until COVID.
Well, we appreciate the hard work. Look forward to the documentary. I believe it comes out Thursday,
Yeah.
Saving the Restaurant. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, just we're coming close on our time, but I have so many themes to talk about. If you had to share one concept or one theme when you guide your team, when you have your pregame, your pre-service, to ensure that the experience that your guests have in your restaurants is one that they'll never forget. What is that key phrase, that key direction to your team?
Probably empathy. We got to be not sympathetic. We got to be empathetic, because if you have 100 guests, they all have a different thing going on that day. And you might not know what's coming down the pike. They could be just hangry. They can be in love. They could be there because someone passed away and they need a bear hug. There's so many different things, and we just have to be ready, not knowing what's, we have some information. Someone might say it's an anniversary. They might say they're celebrating a job. Usually the nitty gritty, if it's something really intense, you don't know until you're in it. Usually someone doesn't make a reservation and say, I just finished my last round of chemo. I mean, sometimes they do, but most people don't. You find that out, or we're here because we were here for a memorial service. Usually they don't let that be known when they make a reservation. So you have to be ready for whatever these guests are going through and be able to see them eye to eye and be empathetic, because it's different.
I absolutely love that. Empathy, something we probably don't think a lot about every single day when our guests come to us. Yeah. Really, really, really good advice. I don't want our time to slip away without, again, coming back to the importance of taking care of yourself and, the impact that exercise has on us. I'd love to just hear a little bit about the importance of, let's just say, running, right? What impact has that had, Bobby, on your ability to think clear, innovate, lead, bring your best every single day? Do you attribute a lot of that to to the exercise that for you is I believe it's daily. I mean,
Yeah, it's a lifeline for me.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I think our industry is so beautiful, but there's dangerous parts to it. It's
Mhm.
high stress. It's a set of hours that are not normal. Um, you might have a loved one or a family member or a college roommate that doesn't love that you work these hours. So that adds another layer of stress. So for
Mhm.
me, it's running or cycling, but whatever people want to find as their release valve. So you have a proper release and you look, and I think it's a little bit tougher now than it was 25 years ago. I think with social media, with all the stressors that everyone's under now, I do think our industry's always had a tough time with substance abuse, not being able to deal with anxiety, not to be able to deal with fatigue and stress. But now it just seems like it's on 11 for so many people. So I just try to encourage everybody. Look, you might not want to be a runner like me, but find something for yourself that you do every day that gets the juices going, that gets your cortisol level down and kind of resets you every day. And it'll pay dividends because you
Great,
want
great.
people to be in this industry for a long time. You want to have sustainability.
Love that. Great, great, great advice. So, Bobby, the name of the podcast is The Ultimate Dish. Tough question because there's probably so many. But in your mind, what is the ultimate dish?
I think if you would look at my career, the ultimate dish has to be the the frico caldo. The frico caldo is a dish that is very traditional in Friuli. It is made of Montasio cheese from the Carnic Alps, steamed potatoes, and sweated onions. It's a dish that's been on the menu every night at Frasca. Whenever someone from Friuli hears that I have a restaurant called Frasca that's based on Friuli, the first question they ask, do you make frico? So to me, that's the ultimate dish because it means so much to me and my staff.
Oh, I love it. I've had it. I've had it there at the restaurant, and the hair, what's left, stood up on the back of my neck. I absolutely love it. What's next? What's next for Bobby? What do the next 18 years look like?
I just I'm very thankful about this industry all the time. I'm thankful that we're inching closer to getting through COVID, and I think I want to continue to be able to be a great leader and mentor to my teams and watch my great employees do great things. I'm very excited about that. And I think there's a new responsibility for not just myself, but any of us that love this industry so much is finding a way for our industry to advocate collectively on the civic, state, and federal level. I think what I've taken away from COVID is we should never let our industry be this fragile again.
Well said, Bobby. And thank you for taking time with us. You're a great friend of Escoffier. We appreciate everything you do out there. And best of luck, and I'll see you at the restaurant soon.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast, where you'll find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. You can also browse other episodes and subscribe.